You know what can be hard? Growing up, evolving, transforming, and then having to deal with family and friends. You know the deal. You start waking up to parts of life that you'd previously been sleeping through. Your consciousness expands to include more people and more ideas and more ways of seeing things. And you refuse to be pulled backward into the dualism from which you came. Your heart and your vision and your soul expands and it opens up, which is all wonderful and beautiful and life-giving for you, but also at the same time can be threatening and scary and off-putting for some of the people around you, especially family members and friends who've known you a very long time. Your growth, as it turns out, can trigger latent insecurities and fears in others. I'm going to bet that many of us right now are feeling some angst and tension in our life, not just because of this third wave of the pandemic or the continued shenanigans coming out of the White House, but because both of those events might exacerbate some of the already strenuous relationships in our life. There's a story in the Gospel of Mark where Jesus returns back after having left for a while, returns back home after having done some public ministry and growing a bit of a following. He goes back to where he grew up and he offers to give the lesson in his hometown. Excitedly, those who knew him all of his life and watched him grow up, they pack into the house to hear him, to hear their Jesus, their hometown hero. But then he started sharing. And, well, upon hearing his newfangled ideas about mercy being more important than sacrifice, and the impossibility of rich people entering the kingdom of heaven, and the importance of loving your enemy and blessing those who curse you, they turn and mutter to each other, "Wait a minute, who does he think he is? This is Jesus, the son of that carpenter, and Mary, the brother of, old so-and-so. We know this guy. And now he's got all these ideas and he's teaching us as though he thinks he has authority. He thinks he knows more than us, doesn't he? If this were in New England, they might say, 'You think you're better than me?' That's a really bad New England accent, but I just had to go with it. So in this story, the word that Mark in his gospel uses to describe their reaction is the Greek word skandalizao, which was a verb that meant you caused someone to stumble. The image I get is someone who's walked a path 1,000 times. They know every bump, every rock, every root. They've spent their whole life walking that path. And then someone comes along who used to walk the path with them as well, and one day says, "Wait, what's that little trail over there?" Or, "Wow, look up, have you ever seen that tree? I've never noticed that before." And the individual who'd grown so accustomed to the landscape that it was second nature, suddenly, simply by being asked to look this way or notice over there, it causes them to trip, to stumble, to lose their balance for a moment. This is what happened when Jesus came back home that afternoon to share with his family and friends what he'd discovered about God and humanity, and what it was like in their situation to be under the boot of Rome on one hand while being yoked with the hyper-legalism of the Pharisees on the other. But his new ideas, and even more so his empowered voice where he spoke from the depth of his own knowing, his own truth, it scandalizoed the people in his hometown. One translation says that they were repulsed by him, which caused them to fall. Sometimes when we live and act from an empowered place, especially after shedding some of our previous ways of thinking, we inadvertently activate the lesser angels in those who knew us as we once were. Sometimes we cause people to trip and fall simply because we've decided to take this path over here. And as they crane their neck to watch us disappear around the bend, they slam into a boulder and then blame us for their headache. Jesus, feeling the bitter disappointment of his hometown, and picking up on their resentment of who he'd become, said the following words: "Prophets are honored everywhere, except in their own hometowns, among their relatives, and in their own households." I ask you, have truer words ever been spoken? Why does it always seem that your relatives, your family members, are often the last people to come around? Your growth has messed up the predictable patterns and the familiar familial systems. If it's any consolation, know that Jesus also had to deal with this. And I think for that reason I love this story, but maybe my favorite part is the very next line, where Mark, who's writing this story down, adds these words. "And Jesus was unable to do any miracles there, except that he placed his hands on a few sick people and healed them." Unable to do any miracles, except for the few times that he did this over here and that over there. Other than that, couldn't do any miracles. And if that's not the perfect description of what it can be like to travel back home for the holidays, for instance, or be in a group text thread with your family, or engaging on Facebook with high school friends who never left their hometown, I don't know what is. Look, you can't make miracles happen. You can't snap your fingers and convert your uncle to be anti-racist. You can't click your heels and convince your grandma to burn her MAGA hats. You can't wish really hard that suddenly your siblings will accept you as you are or stop judging you. Miracles in your hometown? Pfft, good luck with that. But maybe you can do a little something here. Maybe you can sprinkle a tad bit of positivity there. Maybe just a small dash of hope over here. Just inject a portion of love and compassion into an otherwise hostile and unfriendly place. Miracles? No. But moments? Maybe. Maybe. It's a comfort to me to know that even Jesus got side-eyed over the dinner table. And whatever the first century equivalent to being unfollowed on Instagram would be, there wasn't much more that he could do about it than you or I. So if the best we can do when we have those situations where our family or old friends who see the world very differently from we do, and who really struggle to understand that we've taken a different path, if the best we can do is place a few hands on just a few sick people and just sprinkle a dash of hope there or a piece of peace over here, then friends, we're doing about as well as God did that one time he tried being a human and dealing with family. Amen.